Recording in progress.
Okay, and then I'm just going to hand it off to our amazing presenter today, Kyla.
Thank you, Morgan. And I'm going to share my screen. And we'll dive right in. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Beautiful. Okay, so welcome to our presentation, the second part of our three-part series. Are you hormonal, or are you just fill in the blank, tired, stressed, hungry, etc.? My name is Kyla, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Then we're going to dive into the hormonal implications of stress and what you can do to better your hormonal health by managing stress. Same thing for sleep, what birth control does to your hormones. And then we're going to talk about how to use nutrition as a tool in your toolkit of improving your hormonal health. Okay, and then at the end, I'll give you some info about how to contact me after. So my name is Kyla. I have a background in nutrition as well as in exercise physiology. I own my own company called The Hype Wellness, where we use evidence-based strategies to improve your hormonal health, basically your whole lifestyle. But it really comes back to nutrition and moving your body. So let's dive in. Are you hormonal, or are you just stressed? We know the main hormone of this conversation is cortisol. Cortisol spikes when you're in a situation, whether it's really great positive stress, eustress, or your body's in distress. And if you have chronic stress, you may notice that you have high blood pressure, your immune response is lessened, you may feel fatigued, you may have trouble sleeping, irregular periods. Anxiety and depression can also occur as a result of chronic stress. GI problems such as diarrhea, constipation. And what's really interesting is chronically spiked cortisol levels can also promote aging, which I know the entire beauty industry is aimed at not letting you age. So if you are reducing your stress, then you can save hundreds of dollars on your all of your beauty care, right? So let's talk about how to manage stress, because we know it's not great to have severely high cortisol levels, but we all have very, very busy lives. So these are some great strategies for reducing stress through, number one, this is the big three. This is a strategy for prioritizing and also for preventing procrastination. And then we're going to talk about a breath work and mindfulness exercise. So first, let's cover the big three. In this procrastination, anti-procrastination and pro-prioritization strategy, I want you to start by asking yourselves, what are the three most important things that have to get done throughout the day? You can use this when you're at home and doing a million house chores. You could also use this when you're running a business. That's how I do it. You can also use this at work. So what are the three most important things that have to get done today? Then define, why are they so important? What makes them so important? Why do they have to get done? And then lastly, and I think this is the key here, what can I delegate out? What can I have somebody else do? How can I lighten my load as it pertains to these three needle movers, these three major things that need to get done? So this is a great way of managing the stressor. Now we're going to talk about how to manage the internal stress. Research supports using breath work as a great way of reducing physiological stress. So how your body is holding on to stress. Sometimes you might notice your shoulders start to creep up to your ears if you're feeling super stressed, or you start to kind of lean over your desk. You also may notice that your breath shallows, or you may take a moment and take a deep sigh and think to yourself, when was the last time when was I breathing? How long have I been holding my breath? So coming back in a connection with your breath is a great way of bringing your body back into the present moment, and also can reduce cortisol levels. So as an activity, take a moment. I want you to take a deep breath, count in for 4 counts, hold the breath for 4 counts. So counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale for 4 counts. You can repeat this 12, 30, 40 times, as many times as you feel comfortable. And here's bonus points if you can get into the habit or into the repetitive counting of the breath, get into your breath, and then begin to become more mindful of what's around you. Bring yourself into your environment. So you can use this strategy to become more present. You can identify 5 things that are blue or any color that is more calming. Ideally, we want to stay away from like 5 things that are red because that may raise your stress levels. So blues, greens, purples, yellows, softer colors, identify things around you that you can see. And then think about 4 things that you can feel, specifically tell them to yourself, identify these things. Then 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. This is a great way of not only bringing yourself back into the present moment in your environment, but also coming back in a connection with your body. So these are some ways of managing the stressors and then also managing the stress itself. Next, we're going to dive into whether you're hormonal or are you just tired. So how does sleep influence your hormonal health? We know the main hormone of conversation here is melatonin, whether or not you have enough melatonin being produced to keep you asleep, keep you in a restful state. We know that cortisol can interrupt sleep patterns. So if you're very stressed, if you have high anxiety, you may notice that you suffer from insomnia or sleep disturbances. This is why we're going to talk about why sleep is so important and also how you can improve your sleep too. So how does sleep influence your hormonal health? Okay, it influences stress hormones. So not only is sleep influenced by stress, but having inadequate sleep can make your body more stressed. Great feedback loop, right? As well, it also impacts your nervous system, so your ability to manage stress internally and also mentally. Inadequate sleep can cause, we call it dis-ease, discomfort, dis-ease, but also it can promote disease development in the body. So you're at higher risk for developing mood disorders, cardiovascular disease, and inadequate sleep can also lower your life expectancy. So if that didn't catch your eye, we're going to talk about how much sleep is important. Sleeps. A lot of people may not be getting adequate sleep, but they also may not understand what adequate sleep sounds like. We've heard the 8 hours, 9 hours, and so on, but we're actually finding that research shows you need at least 5 hours of sleep. The more sleep you get up to a certain point, typically the better your health outcomes. What that means is if you're not getting 5 hours of sleep, then your disease risk greatly increases. Between 5 and 8 hours, that's good, but you have even better health outcomes, less risk of disease after you have more than 8 hours of sleep consistently. So what can you do to improve your sleep quality and get more sleep? Well, finding a consistent pattern, our body really likes patterns. Finding a consistent sleep pattern can really help your body to adjust to that sleep cycle and promotes better sleep. So being consistent with your bedtime as well as your wake time can help you to improve your sleep quality. I read this in a book a few weeks ago, and I really liked this idea of giving yourself a sleep opportunity. So giving yourself 8 hours of being quiet, being mindful, just being in your bed, not on your phone, just in your bed, whether it's focusing on your breath work, whether it's taking a moment to journal, giving your body 8 hours of the opportunity to get into a deep sleep, even if it doesn't take you 10 minutes to get to sleep. Can be a little bit longer, but sleep opportunity is key, whether or not you are sleeping. Another great way of improving your sleep quality is to keep electronics out of the bedroom and reserve your bedroom specifically for what I call the 2 S's. That's sleep and sex. That's about it. Okay. So what are the biggest takeaways from this segment? Sleep can greatly influence your hormonal health, your mood, your stress levels, and your disease risk, but also the other way around. All of these other factors are influencing your sleep. So what's a great way of reducing your risk of disease, improving your sleep quality, improving your stress management? To give yourself more than 8 hours or at least 8 hours of sleep opportunity every night. Gradually, you can get up to having at least 8 hours of sleep. So up next, we're talking about birth control from our experts at Planned Parenthood.
Hello. Okay, so we wanted to start out this section just giving the overview that everyone's hormones levels are different, making it hard to predict what and if symptoms may occur from taking any sort of birth control. So we just wanted to put that out in the air. So what we have are categories down here. What I mean by symptoms is there's the acceptable symptoms, the dissatisfying symptoms, the under or rarely studied symptoms, and how we're gonna give you helpful recommendations from all of this. So what I mean by acceptable symptoms is what we want to gain out of going on to birth control. So that's reduced acne, menstruation relief, lower risk of pregnancy, has possible cancer protections, and that it's not a symptom, but there's also different types of birth control for each person. So always know that there's options available to you. So for dissatisfying symptoms, this is the ones that we don't want to come along with birth control, but may pop up as symptoms for you. So changes in mood, appetite, lower libido, and blood pressure increase. So just know these may come along, these may not. And then the rarely or understudied symptoms that we want to kind of touch on today are, or could be, blood clotting, vaginal irritation, migraines, bloating and nausea, hormonal fluctuations, which we have in parentheses unknown cycle, because now that you're on birth control, depending on which one you do have, it's harder for people to predict what your cycle is now. Withdrawal periods, the impact of weight and birth control. Touching on a few of those, so why they're rarely or understudied. So blood clotting is just due to if it could be an increased risk for some people that do smoke, right? Yeah. So just be aware of that. And then when you're talking to your doctor, do discuss that you are a frequent smoker or anything like that, because blood clotting can be a risk. Vaginal irritation, this is just a taboo topic, so it's rarely or understudied because of that. Migraines is because everybody's different. We don't know which hormone specifically triggers migraines in people, so it's rarely studied for birth control specifically. Hormonal fluctuating, like I said, unknown cycle. So somebody that has an IUD, compared to the pill is easily still trackable to a cycle. It's a different kind of cycle. So you have the 3 weeks that your body feels like it is pregnant, and then you have your withdrawal period, which is the withdrawals from the hormones. So that's your placebo week. But say you're on an IUD, that can take your period away for good, or just have spotting rarely. So now you don't really know what your cycle is. So you have to be kind of aware of that. And that's understudied because we have so much information about tracking your period and your cycle. But when it comes to getting on a birth control that takes away then the period, which is how people track their cycle to begin with, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just understudied because now you don't have any symptoms telling you that you're on track for your cycle.
It's going to be so different for each person. So it's hard for us to get this information out sometimes because it may happen to you, it may never happen to you. So it really may depend on your hormones that are already in your body, and then you're adding hormones with birth control. Yep. So these are those rarely studied symptoms that definitely happen to people, but we can't say for sure that they will or won't.
Exactly. And that kind of goes with the impact of weight in birth control. This is a big stigma out there. What we can say for this is the feeling of hunger may increase or your appetite may decrease, but it's all due to the new doses of hormones you're getting from your birth control. So it's definitely a hit or miss with these symptoms specifically coming person to person. Helpful recommendations for all of this though, even though like they are understudied, but you need to know about them, that these could be symptoms. You need to track symptoms no matter how small. So migraine, like we're saying, is an understudied one that you should be tracking along. So how I say like track these, we have apps that are available to everybody. There's something called Flow Tracker. Planned Parenthood has one that's called Spot On, and there's so many more that you just find one that fits for you, track every symptom you have, and then when you go into your next doctor's appointment, talk to your doctor about all the symptoms you're having on birth control, so they can find the better fit for you if you're having like the dissatisfying or these understudied symptoms. You have to talk openly to your doctor. If you're not telling your doctor about these symptoms, they're never going to take you off the birth control that will give you these dissatisfying symptoms because they don't know what's going on. I know it's a taboo topic to talk to your doctor about specific things, but know that they're there for you and they are under HIPAA regulations, so they cannot discuss anything else outside of your appointment. Also know what to look for. So that's kind of why we're going over these today. That's why we also broke them down like this as well, because acceptable symptoms, there's still symptoms, but that's what you're looking for in a birth control stay. So a lot of people go on for acne relief or low risk of pregnancy. So just be aware of that. And then also a big thing to know is your family's medical history, so cancers and other diseases. In the acceptable symptoms, we do see it possibly cancer protection, but in some cases, you need to know a little bit more about that because it could be, or it could fall under the rarely or understudied symptoms. Along with that, kind of like when it goes to blood clotting as well, that one I would just watch out for family history as well.
That's always something that you're talking about with your doctor, is knowing your family history going in, because then maybe you won't be put on a birth control that will have these, dissatisfying symptoms. The goal is always to not have them, but it could happen. So knowing those histories, being able to talk really openly and very specifically with your doctor is going to help, these symptoms not occur.
Yeah.
So we are going to dive next into nutrition, and we will kind of broach some of the topics discussed in the birth control section also, like appetite being triggered or suppressed. So are you hormonal or are you just hungry? And just as a review, these are some of the hormones that we're talking about as it pertains specifically to hunger and satiety. If you need a refresher on any of these hormones, definitely refer back to our first session in this 3-part series where we dive into what each of these hormones are, where are they produced in the body, what happens if they're overproduced or if there's not enough in the body, and what normal function typically looks like. So ghrelin, I always remember what ghrelin is because it sounds like this is the hangry hormone in my brain. This triggers your appetite. This makes you feel hungry. Whereas leptin suppresses your appetite. Insulin reduces feelings of ghrelin. I'll always say it like that because it'll reduce symptoms of feeling hungry, and it helps to regulate your blood sugar. Also, like I said, reduces feelings of hunger. It also has fat storing capabilities, but we love insulin. Insulin's a great hormone. Okay, then we have cortisol, right? Our stress hormone is back. It also triggers appetite and increases feelings of hunger. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the influence or the impact of stress is on your appetite, or when hunger is dysregulated. So when hunger is dysregulated, typically it's because of something going on with the hormones. So let's talk about what happens when appetite specifically is being over triggered. This can happen for a myriad of reasons, including high leptin, high cortisol, that was supposed to be high ghrelin, because of high stress, which triggers appetite. So cortisol can also cause ghrelin to act up, or it can suppress leptin and makes you feel more hungry. If leptin is overproduced and your body gets really used to it, it can become resistant to it. So leptin resistance is also something that can cause your appetite to be over triggered. If that makes sense. And then lastly, as it pertains to birth control, changing the hormones in the body, specifically progestins, can increase appetite. Now, like we said, there's not a million, but literally there's quite a few different types of birth control, and each of them reacts with the body differently. So this may or may not occur for you, but it is a stigma in the world of birth control. And your doctor will probably talk to you about your appetite being increased or suppressed on a specific birth control too. So if one of these things is happening, you may find yourself looking for high satiety foods. Satiety means you feel full, satiated. These high satiety foods are typically foods that turn on that reward center in your brain. They're salty, they're typically very high fat, they're sugary. More often than not, they're very dense in calories, which is just the form of energy, but they're very poor in vitamins and mineral content. So these high satiety foods can trigger the release of feel-good hormones. Makes you feel all like, ooh, I love chocolate, right? A good association with that food. And what's interesting is research finds that these high satiety foods, and because they cause the release of feel-good hormones, they light up the same reward center in the brain as things with addiction. So you're actually lighting up the same reward pathway in your brain as, for example, alcoholism, or if you smoke. These other triggers have the same pathway in the brain as a connection to food. So when food is used to cope with stress, we see stress increasing your appetite. We also see stress causing a number of other changes, right? We heard insomnia before. We heard some other weight gain. We heard reduced, or it causes you to age faster. And when you have high cortisol levels, high stress, and you use food as a coping mechanism, you may disconnect those feelings of hunger and satiety, or being hungry and feeling full, and connect food to comfort instead. So over time, this can put you at risk for developing disordered eating patterns, just because of the way that your brain works. So it's very important to tune into your body and listen, okay, am I hungry? Or identify these feelings that are going on. Okay, is my stomach growling? When was the last time I ate? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling really happy? Am I celebrating with food? Or am I meeting a need? And it's not to say you cannot have birthday cake for a celebration, even if you've already had enough lunch that you're full. It's to say, okay, am I overriding these hunger cues, or am I suppressing these hunger cues? What does my body want? Then you can make an informed decision of whether to have food, not to have food, what to do from there. So additionally, having your appetite being over triggered puts you at risk for additional hormonal dysregulation. So high intake of these calorie dense, nutrient poor foods that typically are very tasty is associated with increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and a number of other chronic diseases. Now, this is to say that you may be only or specifically eating these high calorie, nutrient poor foods more frequently than you're consuming like whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, all of these other foods that typically are a little lower in calories, but very, very nutrient packed. So that's what we're going to talk about after we talk about appetite being under or suppressed. But here we see that it's very important to be balancing your food, having fruits, vegetables, all these extra things, so that your body is at least meeting the needs that it needs. So even though if your appetite is being over triggered, even though you may be over consuming total calories from these calorie dense, nutrient poor foods, you may actually be under eating foods that have those essential vitamins and minerals that you really need. So this actually puts you at risk for malnutrition, even though it doesn't look like what a typical malnourished person would look or could stereotypically look like. There is a sense of malnutrition on either end of the spectrum, whether you're overeating or under eating. Either way, you may be under consuming nutrition dense foods. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if appetite is suppressed. So this can happen for a number of other reasons: chronic disease, leptin being released. This time that's right on the slide. Changes in digestive or nervous system functions. A number of things can influence your appetite. Your digestive system is a very complex system. If you are under eating, this can put you at risk for developing undernutrition, another type of malnutrition. You're not taking in enough calories in total, vitamins, minerals, or macronutrients, right? Those are our protein, fat, carbs. Water is also a macronutrient too, so you're not taking in enough. if you are under eating, your body will be in a constant state of stress. So that also causes high cortisol and can lead to additional hormonal dysregulation, right? By impacting sleep and all of the things. It's a trickle-down effect. It causes changes in every system in the body. So it's very important that you're consuming a balanced diet that has a variety of different fruits, vegetables, plant fats, proteins, whole grains, because under eating or not eating enough in general, or overeating foods that have low nutrition content can both lead to nutrition deficiencies. And we're going to talk about the most common nutrient deficiencies that can occur. And a few of them, you'll see that the FDA and the USDA have worked together to kind of mitigate them by supplementing or enriching or fortifying foods with these minerals so that you get them even if you have more of a highly processed diet. So here we go. We're going to talk about magnesium and iron. So magnesium works in the body to help regulate muscle and nerve function along with a host of other things. It is also integral to bone health, which typically we only think of calcium and vitamin D, right? But magnesium plays a huge role here too. Here's the RDA, or what we recommend you consume for generally healthy individuals. If you have an extenuating circumstance, right, that would be like a pre-existing nutrition deficiency, or if your body is not necessarily as able to absorb nutrition, there may be some modifications or you may need to supplement with magnesium too. But you should definitely speak to a doctor about all of these deficiencies if you want to get screened, so that you can do this the right way. We wouldn't want you to start supplementing on one nutrition or nutrient if you don't need to, right? So we're also going to take a food first approach here. So we're going to talk about some of the foods that you can add to your diet that are rich in all of these different vitamins and minerals. So signs and symptoms of a magnesium deficiency, you could notice headaches, anxiety, weakened heart muscle. Obviously, you wouldn't know this. That's why it's really important to go to a doctor. Okay. Foods that are high in magnesium, you see they're mostly plants. So nuts, seeds, lentils, beans, whole grains. The research around adding nuts and seeds to your diet is tremendous. It shows incredible health benefits. So if you haven't been getting some serving of nuts or one serving of seeds throughout the day or throughout the week, highly suggest, as long as you don't have an allergy, adding in nuts or seeds to your diet. Okay, let's talk about iron. We've all heard of anemia, but low iron can also cause extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, dizziness, etc. Foods that are high in iron are red meats, seafood, dark leafy greens, dried fruit, etc. And here are some of the recommendations. We see here that recommendations change depending on where you are in your life cycle. So if you have a menstrual cycle, your iron level, you're going to need more iron than if you are postmenopausal and don't have a period every month. Okay, calcium. Calcium, we know, maintains bone health, but it also plays a key role in muscular contraction. So cool, right? So here are our recommendations, symptoms and signs of deficiency. And then additionally, we're talking about foods that are high in calcium. In addition to dairy products, sardines, leafy greens, fortified cereals, and orange juices and soybeans are also very high in calcium. Would definitely recommend looking on the nutrition label in your dairy products or your nut beverage dairy alternatives to see which ones have more calcium in them. Very important to have in your diet. Okay, iodine. Iodine is involved in the production of thyroid hormone, which really greatly influences your weight. We didn't talk about thyroid hormone. It's a much more in-depth conversation. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me, okay? So foods that are high in iodine, fish, dairy products, and then we see here iodized salt. That's why salt is iodized, because for so long, the US population was having an issue with iodine deficiencies. So all salts are, for the most part, most salts are iodized now. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is integral in bone health, mood, and also plays a role in maintaining your immune system. So signs and symptoms of deficiency could be low bone mineral density, depression. You may notice this very early on in babies or toddlers if they have low vitamin D, because it will present as rickets. Foods that are high in vitamin D include salmon, sardines, cod liver oil, tuna, and egg yolks, and mushrooms too. So in summary, it's very important to have diet diversity. Get as many different foods as possible in your diet daily, if not weekly. And this also will help you to keep up with your body's changing needs, changing energy demands, etc. As your hormones change throughout the menstrual cycle, your nutrition needs change also. So we're going to discuss how you can use nutrition as a tool to help you balance your hormones and reduce some symptoms of PMS and menopause. The world of, this is called like cycle syncing your nutritional needs. You can also do this with exercise, but syncing your nutritional needs with your cycle to help balance your hormones is called cycle syncing. It's a newer concept, but it has been around for decades in some variant or some way. So here we go. Which foods can help you balance your hormones, and which tend to disturb your hormonal balance? So in our last segment, or in our last session together, we talked about how your hormones are changing throughout the menstrual cycle. You can refer back to that to see what's going on. Here, we're just going to talk about the nutritional needs. So you may notice better balance in mood, in hormones, etc., if you start to incorporate some of these things into your diet. So during your menstrual phase, emphasize plant fats. These are like avocado, olive oils, hummus, etc. And having just a fewer grains, it can help to balance inflammation. And fats are like the backbone of a lot of hormones. So having good healthful fats can help with your hormonal health. In your follicular phase, it's important to add in fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, yogurt. This is also a great thing to do specifically to improve your digestive health. These foods have prebiotics and probiotics in them, and so it can help to ease digestion, alleviate constipation or diarrhea, different things. Very important, great idea to add into your diet. Okay, in your ovulatory phase, an emphasis on plant-based foods can help you to feel energized and light and ready to roll. During your luteal phase, having more hearty, high fiber carb sources can help you to to feel energized as well, and can help to fight fatigue during this phase. So other foods that are magnesium rich, like those leafy greens, and can help to fight fatigue and also keep your sex drive up. Also, dark chocolate, spinach, some pumpkin seeds can do the same things. These are also very magnesium rich foods. It's suggested that in your menstrual phase and your luteal phase, you steer away from alcohol, high sodium foods, and dairy, because these foods can cause your body to hold excess water, and have been considered to be inflammatory foods. And at this phase of your cycle, you typically already have a bit of inflammation going on elsewhere in the body. So ideally, plant-based foods, high fiber, and yeah, lots of plants, you'll notice. So here are a few ideas for how this could look in terms of food itself, right? Because you're not just going to eat a handful of pumpkin seeds. Like, how do I integrate this into my diet? So if you're in your menstrual phase, an option would be like baked Jamaican jerk chicken and a pineapple avocado salsa. So we have those healthful fats. We have the tomato and pineapple in the salsa to fight inflammation. We have a lean protein like chicken, very flavorful, right? To help you stay full. And also the avocado for plant fats, for good fats. In the follicular phase, here's a few options. We also integrated some of those fermentable foods like kimchi and kombucha. During your ovulatory phase, this is one of my favorite salads, so I figured I would add this in here. Perfect for right now as we step into the fall. We have those like warm roasted walnuts, which are great for heart health and for your brain, your nervous system. Sunflower seeds, some strawberries. You can change out those fruits seasonally too. And then as we enter the luteal phase, we want to focus on those high fiber foods. I think that something that would be delicious to enjoy here would be a lean grilled chicken, some banza pasta, which is like a lentil-based pasta, and perhaps some homemade pesto with olive oil. Yum. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how nutrition can help you through perimenopause. So we talked about last time, perimenopause is a time when people with uteruses typically experience menopause symptoms. Okay, so these hot flashes, sleep disturbances, etc., are not actually like, they don't happen when you have menopause. It happens in the time leading up to the day that you haven't had your period in a year. So this can last 8-10 years leading up to menopause. So using your diet to ease perimenopause symptoms, I'm going to dive in here. Limiting caffeine and spicy foods can help to make hot flashes less severe. Adding a variety of plant-based foods that are rich in phytoestrogens can help to also mediate symptoms associated with this gradual decline in estrogen levels. Supplementing with calcium and vitamin D is highly recommended to reduce your risk of fracture, because what we find is as estrogen levels drop, your risk of osteoporosis or the progression of osteoporosis increases. So your body kind of takes calcium and other minerals from your bones, and ideally we want it to stay there. Strength training can also help to reduce your risk of injury and prevent falls. It can help to slow progression of osteoporosis too. Now that part doesn't have so much to do with nutrition, but what happens when you are strength training, you're lifting weights, your muscle is actually putting tension. We're developing tension in the bone, or we're putting stress on the bone. And so it forces your bones, not just your body is working out, but your bones are quite literally working out and laying down new bone. It's slower as you age, but continuing to strength train can help your body to maintain more of its bone mass, its bone mineral density. So what can you eat? What can you eat to help balance your hormones? Diet diversity is key here, and it's very important that you're eating enough for your body and lifestyle. One of the, I think almost every one of my clients who comes to me to talk about nutrition or talk about exercise, when we break down what they're eating, they're oftentimes under eating, if not always under eating. It's also very important to pay attention to your hunger and your satiety cues. So if you're not eating enough, your body will always be in a stress state. If you are in a stress state, hunger may be induced quicker, but you also may use food as a coping mechanism. And so it can quiet those hunger and satiety cues. It can get very confusing. So it's very important that we turn inwards. We think, okay, am I hungry? Am I not? What's going on inside? And then move forward with your diet or your mealtime, depending on how you feel. During that mealtime, it's very important that you emphasize complex carbs. These are whole grains, whole wheat, fruit, fiber, fruits and vegetables, beans, lentils, peas, etc. And then we also want to talk about those having higher content of plant fats in your diet. So nuts, seeds, avocado, vegetable oils, these things that have kind of an anti-inflammatory response in the body. Love that. And then lastly, increasing our consumption just pretty much in general of plants, because a lot of seeds and legumes and lentils, these also soy-based foods have high levels of phytoestrogens, which can help to balance your estrogen levels, help to balance your hormones. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Final takeaways. When it comes to nutrition, it's very important that you're consuming a wide variety of foods to prevent nutrition deficiencies and also to improve hormonal regulation. As it pertains to stress, I know stress is something that comes very natural. It's very easy to get stressed, but knowing how to manage your stressors as well as your internal stress can help to keep your hormones balanced. As it pertains to sleep, it's very important for you to give yourself at least 8 hours of sleep opportunity each night, even if that isn't necessarily restful sleep just yet, working up there. And then lastly, Morgan, I'll let you summarize our birth control point.
So the big takeaway with birth control in all of this, in this presentation encapsulating, it's just important to keep track of any symptoms you may be having on any type of birth control that you are on, because there are many different options. Be open and willing to talk to your doctor about these symptoms that are happening, and just tracking on an app is a very helpful to find these patterns and symptoms in your daily lives.
Thank you. Great. And this is how you can contact me. I'm on social media. You can also send me an email and I will respond very quickly, very prompt. And lastly, here are all of the citations. I'm going to stop my screen sharing. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much for having me today. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And for anyone watching the YouTube, make sure you watch the first session as well as the coming third session, where we will be diving into cycle syncing, what that looks like, what that actually is, the evidence behind it, and some nutrition, some deeper like nutrition recommendations for different phases of your cycle.
Amazing. Yeah, our next session, part 3 of this series, will be September
29th.
September 29th at 12:30 again. The link will be sent out again, and also in our bio, both PPNC and Y1, and then Kyla will be sharing it as well when it gets closer.